This is my second favorite Hellraiser movie. And if you're still watching this, let me explain why. Yes, what's going on, everybody? Today I'm going to be talking about Hellraiser Deader and how I've really always liked it. So, I know the whole stigma behind the Hellraiser series, especially when it got to the direct video era, where you had Hellraiser Inferno, which, and just kept going with the direct to video stuff, and they were all kind of bad. And I know that there's the whole thing of they just took these generic scripts and just wrote a couple of Hellraiser things here and there, and then we're like, okay, there we go. That is our new movie. And people say that like all of them are exactly the same, including this one. And I am here to say that I disagree. And what I've noticed when people talk about this movie is that they fall into one of two camps. They either say this movie is just the absolute worst and, it's terrible and all of that, or they say it's good as like this generic, like investigation, mystery, cult type story, but it's a terrible Hellraiser movie. I have always thought it works as a Hellraiser movie, and we're going to go into that. So, essentially, if y'all want a quick like synopsis of the plot, basically you have this investigator who's told, "Hey, go to Romania, and there's some weird stuff going on." She watches this video of this cult like ceremony going on of somebody who gets killed and then is brought back to life. And so she is tasked with investigating what all is going on here. And while that's going on, she's kind of dealing with some previous trauma that she had as a kid. And and she stumbles upon the lament configuration held within the hand of this corpse. And then the corpse like reanimates and then like comes back to life and really freaks her out and all of that. So there's some interesting stuff. Now I will say, to the credit of the people that don't like this movie and they say that the Cenobites are barely in the movie, you are correct. They don't have a whole lot of screen time, but what the screen time is focused on is it's focused on figuring out this cult and what's going on and how is it happening and all of that. And you don't really get a whole lot of answers regarding that, which I thought was kind of interesting. They didn't spell it out and say, here is how all of this is happening. But the reason why I say this is a Hellraiser movie is because it takes the concept of like death and the afterlife and takes it in a different direction. So ever since the original movie, you had this thing of like, Hellraiser and the Cenobites and all that. They're kind of like a stand-in for the afterlife of like you die and then you go here or something like that. If you seek this out, you go here when you die. And then in the second movie, Hellbound, you actually get to see what their world looks like and all of that. And so you kind of already have that kind of thing of this, is this what the afterlife looks like in this universe? And so this kind of takes that concept of, death and, an eternal existence in a different state and all of that. And they kind of explore that in a different way of what if it's a thing of you physically die and then you're physically brought back to life in the same world and all of that. And it explores, what would that look like and how would people interpret that? And I will say, like when people think of Hellraiser, they think of like the S&M type stuff. And yeah, that's like not in this movie at all. And so if you're looking at like that, of there's no like weird bondage and chains and stuff like that, yeah, you're going to be disappointed if that's what you're into with this. You're not going to find it in there. But what we are going to see is a continuation of, like I said, like looking at the afterlife from a different perspective and all of that. And on top of it, this is the only other movie that explores the merchant bloodline. If you're not familiar with Hellraiser Bloodline or want a quick refresher, basically there was this guy who made the lament configuration and then he discovered what it was for, and then ever since then he was like determined of, I'm going to make the opposite of that to trap the Cenobites forever. And he never was able to complete it, but he did make a blueprint, and then you continue through all the generations and eventually come to the future, and this one guy who's a descendant of that guy, he was able to figure it out. But we actually get to see one of the descendants of the toy maker in this, and he's the leader of the cult. And so I think that that's interesting, and why the Cenobites are specifically targeting him of, you, we are after you. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It also kind of shows of like this guy, yeah, he's important, he's got the status, but he's also got this power behind him, and he's kind of abusing it in a way. of like, making people into these mindless zombies and claiming to help them because in his own twisted way he is, which isn't too dissimilar from what the Cenobites do. So when they saw it, they were like, nope, we're taking you out. And yeah, so that's just kind of a brief synopsis of this movie here and why I like it. I'm not saying you have to agree with me, okay? I totally understand if you say, I don't like that movie, it's not my thing. I totally get it, all right? I mean, I have that way with some movies, but there are also other movies that I do like, whether or not it's popular or not. I mean, if y'all saw my video of defending the Rob Zombie Halloween movies, you know that I like those, even though it's not popular to say that. But regardless, so there is my 2 cents on Hellraiser Deader. I personally recommend it. If you haven't seen it or you haven't seen it in a while, I'd recommend at least giving it a second chance. And if you still don't like it, that's totally fine. But I'm just saying, I just gave, my views on why I like it. So maybe that helps, maybe it doesn't, but regardless, that's what I say. And like I said, this is my second favorite Hellraiser movie, for what that's worth. Regardless, so there's that. If you enjoyed this video, you can definitely leave a like. If you like Hellraiser, you like specifically Hellraiser Deader and all of that, whatever. You can let me know in the comments what you think. You can say I agree with you, I disagree with you, whatever it might be. If you want to see more content like this, you can definitely subscribe. I have plans to do other videos like this with other movies and stuff like that. But yeah, other than all of that, I hope you enjoyed. I hope I'll see you all later. Goodbye.